Hey everybody, Ray Pastor, and I want to talk about 5 reasons why you should get a master's degree in instructional technology. Yes, you can absolutely get a job in the field without a degree. You can put together work samples, learn some of the stuff, and you will be able to get through an interview and get a job. But I'm going to give you some reasons why you probably should really consider the degree. Some of the reasons why it makes sense. We're not talking about finding a good master's degree program. I'm assuming you know how to do that, or you've watched my other video on how to find a good program. So let's talk about 5 reasons why you should get a degree. All right, the first and biggest reason is an increase in pay. The recent report by the e-learning guild has found that people who have a master's degree on average make $3,000 more per year. So if you consider the cost of a master's degree in our field, which averages anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000, I know my program is only like $9,000 or $10,000. You pretty much have paid that back after 2 or 3, 4 years, and then that's profit. If you're talking about a 30-year career, you're potentially talking about $100,000 more money because you have a master's degree. So if you only pay $9,000 for $10,000, even $20,000 for a degree, and you're going to make $3,000 per more, huge difference. And in fact, they actually found that those who had a Ph.D. made $6,000 more on average than those who did not have the degree in the field. So it seems like the degree has a significant amount of actual salary. So that's a huge factor. All right, next reason, network. So network is extremely important, and you can absolutely build networks by going to conferences and doing other things besides getting a degree. So I'm not trying to say that, but something about going through the same program with someone. So first of all, you learn how everyone in your cohort works. You really get to know them. And then additionally, you get to be alumni. So for example, I'm an alumni at Bloomsburg University, that master's program. And everywhere I go, they're like, oh, where'd you get your degree from? And I say, I got it from my undergrad, my master's from Bloomsburg and my PhD from Penn State. Everybody's like, oh, so you know this person who either graduated from there or is a professor from there. It's that network. Additionally, when I got my first job, so I was hired at a large management consulting firm, Booz Allen Hamilton. We actually went out and we needed to hire a bunch of instructional designers. My manager came to me and said, hey, do you know anyone that we should hire who's really good that you went to school with or anybody? And I picked 4 people from my program that I had went and got my master's with, and all 4 of them got positions there. So because they knew me, they didn't even have to reach out to me. I just knew they were good and was able to reach out to them. So that network that you establish. Additionally, my current program, we have like a really large network on LinkedIn and Facebook where we stay together. We have events yearly where people can come, alumni can come. That network, that bond that you form with those people is something you will carry through your entire career. All right, next thing. Point number 3. You learn how to become an actual instructional designer. So here's the problem. And let me actually use medicine's like the greatest example of this because it's such an easy thing. So like I know enough about medicine to diagnose a cold. I can diagnose a cold really well. I can say, well, you got stuffy nose, sore throat, yeah, cold. But guess what? That doesn't make me a doctor. That doesn't make me a doctor because I might miss asking that person if they have a stiff neck, which could indicate meningitis. Same thing with instructional design. I can teach my 10-year-old how to build really pretty presentations and pieces of training in Articulate, Storyline, or Captivate, or any of this like what I consider automatic software, drag and drop software. It's super easy to develop really nice stuff in those softwares. So just because you can do that doesn't mean that there's actually training in those pieces of software. Do you understand how to actually implement training in addition to presenting? Do you understand when and why you do certain things, how to make recommendations to clients and when you should be making those recommendations? It's the same thing. It's very similar to any other field. The problem with not having that degree, assuming you go to a good program, because not all the degrees are equal, is that You don't know what you don't know. There's a lot of really, really bad training out there. I own a consulting firm in addition to being a professor, and I can tell you that some of the projects I got put on are projects where a company paid someone a significant amount of money to develop training for them, and then they're coming to me to fix all the problems that happened in it. And it's because the training was, I've seen so many examples of poor training that people have developed for companies that I've had to go in and basically redo the whole thing because it was horrendous. Just know how to do it from the start. Know how to do it correctly. There's a lot of bad training out there. You don't want to be one of those people. I've literally met people who've been in the field for 20 years and can't pass a basic interview with me because I ask them questions that actually indicate whether they really understand how to be an instructional designer or not. You can fake your way through it, but not when I'm asking questions. They're not faking their way through my questions. But there are other ways you can fake your way in to get into that corporate job. So just be good. Like, don't you want to just be good at it? Okay. Next thing. And this is something that I think a lot of people don't necessarily see, especially a lot of new instructional designers definitely wouldn't see this. So having the degree really helps you become recession proof. So a lot of new instructional designers, I hear a lot of people say, well, you know, I got my job without being a degree. I'm a teacher or whatever, and I just was able to go into the field. Okay, so what happens if the economy tanks again? Because the economy tanked in 07 and 08. I was there for it. I saw it. I saw exactly what happened to our field in 07 and 08. So the first thing that happened is pretty much everybody I knew lost their jobs. The next thing that happened is there weren't any job postings for a good year and a half to maybe 2 years. I mean, I'm not saying like there were hardly any I'm saying there was none. Not one job posted on any job board. Zero. You were out of luck. I had a lot of friends that had to switch careers at that time because there wasn't anything. Now, well, how does having the degree help? Well, there were two industries that didn't tank during that time. And they're big industries in our field. And they are government and they are higher education. And they were actually hiring during that time because generally when the economy tanks, higher ed actually increases because people go and get degrees. So there was a bigger need for instructional designers. So higher ed was hiring and government was hiring, and they do usually require a master's degree. So if you didn't have it at that time, you were just one of those people that were just going to have to go find and do something else. But having the degree allowed you to go get those jobs because there were higher ed jobs, there were government jobs, but there wasn't a corporate job posted for a solid 18 months. And trainers were like one of the first people to go in these companies. PI specialists, business architecture, process engineers, training. Those were the departments to be cut first. So help make yourself recession proof. All right. Next thing, final point. If you're not trained to be an instructional designer, how can you convince companies or employees that they should be trained to do whatever job they're doing? I mean, this is like the most basic thing of our field. Literally, if you don't think that you need to be trained to be an instructional designer, why should I have to be trained, go through the training to learn like whatever software you're trying to teach me? I should just be able to go figure it out myself. Everyone should just be able to go figure out stuff themselves. There's no point for training. If you don't need to be trained for an instructional design to be an instructional designer, you can't convince other people that they need training for other things. Heck, you might as well go to the company and say, you know what? I know from experience, I'm an instructional designer. I wasn't trained in this. People don't need to be trained in stuff. Just tell your employees to figure it out. They can look at online resources. There are some tutorials on YouTube. They'll figure out how to do this correctly, right? No, it doesn't work like that because they actually need the training. We know you need the training. Same thing with instructional design. You actually need training to be able to do it correctly and well. So those are my points. All right. So let's run through them really quick. Higher salary with having the degree. That's according to eLearning Guild. So that's you're not going to dispute that unless you're that N of one person that has to be like, but I know someone. No. We're not talking about the N of 1. We're talking about on average everyone. You make more money having the master's degree. All right. Establish a good network. And yes, there are other ways to establish that network, but something about being at the same school with someone does make a difference. You are ensured that you actually have the knowledge to be an instructional designer. There isn't like that 101 thing that you're going to miss, like my doctor example, where, yeah, I can diagnose a cold, but I missed the stiff neck. The same thing with ID. You don't want to miss that basic thing. You don't want to miss things that you don't want to, there are things you just don't know, and you want to make sure you know them all. Help you last through bad times like a recession, because it opens up it expands your, what you can actually do, where you can apply to. And if you aren't, finally, my last point was, if you aren't trained, how can you convince others to be trained? Like, that just boggles my mind, that whole point right there. We, as instructional designers, we should be the ones demanding that everyone in our field has some kind of competency base of knowledge to actually do it. We should be the leaders in that over every other field out there. That just boggles my mind that we're not. We're like the opposite. So anyway, that's my top 5 list of reasons why you should get a degree in instructional design. I hope you enjoyed. Later, everybody.